Hi folks, welcome to part 2 of reproductive systems. In this quick mini lecture, we're going to focus on male reproductive anatomy and a tiny bit of physiology. So as I said in the first part of the lecture, the function of the reproductive system is the production of gametes. Which in the case of males are sperm, as well as the delivery of sperm through intromission, which is the technical name for insertion of penis into the vagina, and then ejaculation, which usually is accompanied by orgasm. So in this image, what we're looking at is a partial frontal section through the male reproductive system. As is the case with the female reproductive system, there are some structures that males have one of. Those are located on the midline of the body and include the prostate gland, the urethra, which is part of the urinary and reproductive system in males, the penis, and the scrotum. There are also bilateral structures, the seminal vesicles, vas deferentia, bulbourethral glands, testes, and epididymis. And for reference, here we have the urinary bladder and then the ureters coming down from the kidneys as well. So we're going to go through each of these structures in turn. And you definitely will want to come back to this after we go through all of the anatomy. You're going to want to come back to this figure and be able to label each of the structures that's listed on this page on a frontal section. Okay, so first things first, non-reproductive anatomy. Here we have a mid-sagittal section, and we've got the urinary bladder here, the ureter from one of the kidneys coming down, and the anus. So we've got the anal sphincter muscles here. We've got the rectum in the beginning of the sigmoid colon. We've got the pubic symphysis, which is sometimes called the pubic bone. And assorted skeletal muscles. Okay, so when we look at the male reproductive system, right, and we're looking at the actual structures of the reproductive system here, there are a couple ways of learning this. One of the most helpful ways, I think, anyway, is to either focus on the flow of urine or the flow of semen. Since this is the reproductive system, I'm going to go with the flow of semen. So we have the testis here, which is inside the scrotum, which holds both testes. And this structure is called the epididymis, and it leads into the vas deferens, which comes up, goes around the top, or loops over the top of the ureter. Then we've got seminal vesicles, which is an exocrine gland. It's a duct that goes through the prostate gland, which is a midline structure here. And then we have these tiny little glands called the bulbourethral glands that also contribute to semen. And then the urethra. So if we look a little more closely at the testes, right? So I said the scrotum is the sac that holds the testes, and it is temperature sensitive. So sperm will not develop at typical body temperature. And there are actually muscles associated with the scrotum. They're the sort of darker pink things that draw the scrotum up closer to the body if it's cold, in order to keep the testes at the right temperature for sperm production. Or if it's quite warm, those muscles will relax and allow the testes to hang farther from the body. So the testes are paired organs. They produce sperm and also male sex hormones. And they are made of teeny tiny tubules called seminiferous tubules. So think semen, seminiferous. And each testis also has lobes. So there's a single lobe with its tubes. The testes are where sperm are born, but not where they mature. So after they're born, at a certain point, they migrate out into this larger set of tubes, and they enter into the epididymis, which is described as a comma-shaped structure. And there they are going to remain until a male ejaculates, or if ejaculation doesn't occur for a long period of time, they can be reabsorbed. So this micrograph is of a section through a single seminiferous tube. Well, okay, actually, let me go back here for a sec. Through cross-section, through some seminiferous tubules. And so, right, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones. The lumen of the seminiferous tubules, you can see some of the more grown-up spermatozoa with their tails sticking into the middle. The Sertoli cells in the seminiferous tubules are sort of nursemaid cells for developing sperm. And the process of sperm production is called spermatogenesis, literally the genesis of sperm. There are also, in between the seminiferous tubules, cells that are called interstitial cells, or Leydig cells, after Herr Dr. Leydig, I'm sure. And those are the cells that secrete testosterone. Sperm itself, the overall anatomy and physiology is similar between different types of animals, but there are some differences in shape. So the head of the sperm is essentially a DNA delivery vehicle, and it's covered with this little protein cap, which is called the acrosome, and that contains enzymes that can dissolve the outer layer of cells around the egg. The mid-piece is chock-a-block full of mitochondria, which is important because these guys are going to need lots of ATP for swimming. And then we have the tail, which is actually the piece that, as it moves back and forth, generates forward movement. The vas deferens are the tubes that carry sperm from the epididymis, here, the epididymis, to the first, one of the first places where additional components are added to semen, and that's the seminiferous vesicles. The urethra, well, I'll come back to the production of semen in a second. The urethra transports sperm out of the body. And, excuse me, it's not shown particularly well here, but there actually are sphincter muscles at the base of the bladder that are going to essentially clamp down during ejaculation to ensure that urine doesn't become mixed in with the semen. A vasectomy is a form of male birth control, and it's called that because what happens is clipping of the vas. And then once those clipped ends heal, the two parts of the tube are no longer connected, and so sperm can't make their way into semen. So speaking of semen, in addition to sperm, you have 3 glands, each of which provides an important component. So the seminal vesicles produce a sugary fluid that is what is going to allow for all of the ATP regeneration required by the mitochondria for swimming. The prostate gland, which I'm going to outline here, is a midline structure, and it produces an alkaline fluid, so basic fluid. So not a lot of hydrogen ions, but a higher pH number. And that's because sperm like a basic pH, but the vagina has an acidic pH. And then last but not least, this little teeny tiny guy here, which is called the bulbourethral gland, and that contributes some mucus that acts as a lubricant, and also acts as a lubricant. So the penis is the organ that's used for sexual intercourse, as well as urination. The tip of the penis is called the glans penis, and it is in intact males covered by the foreskin, which protect the glans penis so that it doesn't become desensitized from rubbing against clothing, for example. And it also has some small lubricating glands inside it that facilitate intercourse. The erectile tissue of the penis, there are 2 different kinds, the corpus spongiosum and the corpus, I'm blanking on the name, corpus spongiosum and the bulbocavernosum, I believe. Erections are caused by a pinching off of the blood vessels of the veins that would allow venous return from the penis. And so that leads to engorgement and erection of the penis. All right, so let's go back to the very beginning here and label these structures. So the prostate in a frontal section is right here. The urethra is here. This would be called the prostatic urethra, and then we've just got the urethra. This whole thing is the penis, and the scrotum isn't shown here because the two testes are separated. And you've got the two different kinds of erectile tissue here as well. So then when we think about the other glands, we've got, I showed you the prostate, we've got the two small bulbourethral glands that produce, add a little mucus to semen. The prostate is going to add in alkaline fluid. The seminal vesicles on either side are going to add in seminal fluid, which contains a lot of glucose. Then we've got the two vas deferens. The epididymis on either side, which is where sperm mature and are stored until ejaculation, and then the testis itself, which is where the sperm are born. All right, there we go.